This 30th edition of the United Nations Climate Conferences has come also with a mixed bag. This is to present you summaries of outcomes as the event ended. First, talking about the upsides. It's important to note that it was a successful meeting that acknowledged that international climate finance still has its value in spite of geopolitical issues, especially that led by the United States pullout of that conference. Also, agreements were reached, for instance, in tripling adaptation finance, which was a major outcome. It was also agreed that a series of dialogues will be hosted under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change on trade-related issues to climate change. And of course, a major result, a major outcome, for host country Brazil pulling off with the establishment of the Tropical Forest Forever facility, even though this is on a unilateral basis. So Brazil's effort was a major step towards state parties taking unilateral roadmaps on their own. It's also important to note that the indigenous peoples and communities' voices were heard. For the first time, they were acknowledged as being critical stakeholders in climate conversations because they also bear a major brunt in issues caused by climate change. Even though there wasn't a unanimity or consensus on roadmaps, but it was also agreed that investing away from fossil fuels is the way to go, and every state party agreed to this. Talking about consensus on investing away from fossil fuels and other roadmaps, Brazil was able also to present a roadmap on that and then deforestation plans. Again, it was agreed that focus on economic transition as a key impact point of negotiations, that countries that invest and countries that take climate action will attract increased benefits of investment, security, and multi-layered development, including job creation, job provision for these populations, as outcomes of investing in climate adaptation and mitigation measures. It was noted again that countries that do the opposite will be left behind in those development indicators. With respect to just transition outcomes, it was underscored that decarbonizing economy and advancing social and economic development could be mutually reinforcing, which means it is a mutual benefit to having decarbonization integration into economic development strategies of countries. Trade was recognized as a bridge rather than a barrier to climate progress. That is why countries are going to be participating in trade-related issues in climate transition. And this will be midwifed by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Local governments made a commitment to slash emissions in a bid to protecting their communities. Again, more countries committed to phasing out coal, restore forests, degraded forests, transform food systems in their climes, and to sustainably manage oceans contiguous to their countries. In spite of not agreeing on a roadmap, 13 nations and one region committed to launching country platforms to mobilize both public and private finance to enable them grow their climate action to scale. In addition, about $150 billion were pledged by utility providers as part of greening the grid with respect to overall COP30 action agenda. It was also agreed that some practical steps have to be taken in lieu of that to drive investment to to scale. With respect to the global stock test, it was affirmed that fairness, inclusion, and responsibility must guide every decision going forward. Now, let us look at the downsides from COP30. The number one is formal negotiations failed to come to a consensus on a roadmap to achieving the 1.5 degrees centigrade or achieving the phase out of fossil fuel as a major culprit in climate challenges. Also, COP30 was unable to provide adequate response to having states up or raise their ambitions to climate commitments. And this was rather a tragedy.